Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Sonia. I wanted to talk about spirit work today, but I also want to say before I do that sometimes people can get a little weirded out over talking about, I don't know if you want to call it the dark side, the deeper side, it exists, okay? And you can't make it all seem nice and tidy all the time. You can't, what I say, whitewash everything and make it acceptable or palpable, as they want to call it. I've used that word because people get uncomfortable when you start talking about real stuff other than lighting the candle, saying a few words, and all. It can creep people out if you go too much deeper than that. But I can't be who I am without doing the deep stuff. I'm sorry. Okay. And I'm not even including, there's still like 2 other sections, and I'll leave it up to you if you want more, like the rest of this in another video, or it's like that's enough. That's enough. I don't do that kind of stuff anyway, so that's enough. So we're going to talk about spirit work today. And you know, there's 1,000 ways to open doors, but I seem to only find like a handful of ways to close them. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about. When you open the door and then you got to close the thing, okay? There's all this glamour, you know, around summoning. You got the candles, you got the chants, you got the thrill of calling something older than themselves. I understand that. There's a thrill, but you forget that the unseen can have teeth. I like using that phrase because it's true. They forget that once a thing is invited in, it's going to remember that path back. Okay? It's going to remember how to get back. From what I've learned, I'm 59 years old now. That can hit hard sometimes. But I've read and learned that there are safeguards that need to be learned before I call anything. You're taught how to clean a threshold, how to anchor your mind, and how to send a wandering spirit back to its own road. And I'm going to be reading a lot of this because this is a lot. It's a lot. Nowadays, too many want to treat spirits, gods, and demons like stories and not neighbors. If that doesn't apply to you, then fine. But people will dabble because they half believe. And that half belief is the most dangerous kind. And it can leave them unprepared when something answers with its full weight. And there have been a couple of times, not on this property, and not the property before this, but I think it was the one before that. Yes, I've moved a few times. Issues. Which is why I will deal with whatever here, because I'm not going anywhere else. I'm tired of that. But yeah, there was a place, and I feel like it had to do with the energy of the people who were there before, who lost the property, and people who were wanting that property, you know, within the same family, but they were not willing to give, I don't know, the bank or whatever, or whoever took hold of it, they were not willing to give them what they needed for them to take the property. And so a lot of that energy was taken out on us. And I feel that half of this was from that energy. Now, the other half was something altogether more and older than these people. And I've told the story before, but if you've never been held down while you're awake, then people saying about this sleep paralysis thing, that wasn't sleep paralysis. Okay, just let me emphasize that. I had to actually make myself get as angry as I possibly could in order to stop this. And it's really hard when you can't move and you can't speak. It's hard to do. So let's get back into this. When a haunting grows teeth, when a spirit slips its leash, when a presence settles into someone's bones, most modern witches stand there with wide eyes and empty hands. They never learned how to call for help. They never learned how to close that gate. They never learned that some things cannot be handled alone. I learned. The unseen doesn't care whether you believe in it. It cares whether you respect it. And too many have forgotten that respect is a skill. One that must be learned, tended, and practiced. Without it, even a small spirit can become a storm. Like if we're going to do witchcraft, let's actually do this, okay? If you're going to work with spirits, let's actually do this, okay? Let's stop playing at disbelief. The unseen is as real as briars and broken bones. It behaves no better than wild creatures do. Folks love to pretend that spirits are these friendly guides, that the gods are benevolent parents, and demons are just misunderstood. That's, I feel, is foolishness. Most of them don't give a fig for your well-being. They have their own hungers, their own games, and their own old grudges. Spirits, half of them lie. And it's because it's their nature to. The other half lie because it's fun. Familiars are the exception, and even they will nip when you get careless. Gods, I don't want to get started. A God is going to take every offering you give, and they're going to still ask for more. They don't want devotion. They want your usefulness. Stick with me here. They want energy. They want attention. They want that little spark inside of you that makes you interesting to them. And demons are just spirits and gods with their masks torn off. People think calling a deity is safe because it's holy. But holiness has nothing to do with kindness. Read your old tales. I say this all the time. Read your old fairy tales. The Russian ones, the German ones, Norse, Celtic. Are they nice in there? Are they parental? Are they just going to change their whole direction just for this time period for us? They're just going to change all of that. Because the gods in those stories are not gentle. Those gods are powerful. If you've read them, you know this. They're powerful, they're dangerous, they are unpredictable. And they reward and punish on whims. They're older than language. He understood this when he wrote this book. No, don't go out and buy this book now. I've had this book for a few years. Am I going to destroy it because he turned out to be a turd? No, I don't do that to books. I see enough done to books. If you don't know, I'm not going into this. If you don't know about Neil Gaiman, I guess how you say it, then do some research on him and find out why people don't like him. I'm not here to tell you that. But like I said, you don't need that book to learn that. You have the old stories. You have these old tales. And they've been warning us for centuries. If you assume the supernatural is real, then you also must assume that it's perilous. It's not a board game. It's not a pack of cards. You must assume that most of it doesn't care about you. You must assume some of it actively wants to use you. Am I saying that all do? No, I'm saying you must assume. And you got to stop pretending that disbelief is a shield, because it isn't. It's an invitation. It's better to face the danger honestly than to stumble blindly into its arms. I know there's some out there and you're rolling your eyes. Okay. But this stuff is either real or it's not. I said this before. It's either real or it's not. Okay? Am I just thinking that we're all just play acting? You know, this is like cosplay. Is that what they call it? Cosplay? I don't want to cosplay. I want the real stuff, or I don't want it at all. So if you're calling anything from the other side, whether it's a spirit, a god, a shade, whatever mask that it's wearing, you best do it inside a space that knows how to hold it. And now we're going to talk about this. Folks today treat circles like pretty chalk drawings, like it's a prop for a photograph. And I get it. For most things, if I'm not doing something like this, I don't feel I need a circle. And I've spoken about that before. There are certain things I don't need a circle for because I'm already in a space for that. But when you are in doing this and calling for something, you need it. Because the circle is a wall, it's a lock, it's a boundary between your world and theirs. You open a door, you better make damn sure that nothing is going to slip through that you didn't give permission to. And you can't just do that willy-nilly, okay? That circle is what that's for. I'm talking about Ouija boards here too, okay? You'd be better off if you did that in a circle. So people think they're toys. I have one up there. They're doors. Thin ones at that. Unprotected ones. If you're going to use one, cast a circle around it. A real circle. Not a half-hearted tracing. You want to make it tight. You want to make it true. You want to make it with the understanding that you are keeping something out just as much as you're letting something in. Lucky is in here again. See the tail. And don't stand in that circle empty-handed. What I mean by that is you want your tools. Or you could become like a meal. You want to have a steel, your knife, rolling stick, if you can get one of those, or any kind of relatable stick or wand. Something that's going to bite back, something that has the power. Just don't go grab one off the ground immediately before you do it. I got my stick. Okay? It doesn't have anything until you put something in that stick. It has what it stands for, but you got to tell it. Have banishing herbs ready in case something does. He's going to knock the camera over. Like rosemary or salt or ash or whatever you think a banishing herb is to you. You know, whatever you can grab. You don't need any kind of these fancy ingredients. I know we say that all the time, but you don't. You need your intent and you need to be ready. You need to be able to act before fear makes your hands stupid. Okay? Just have it all planned out. If I feel this is happening, this is happening, it's ready to go. There's the burner, there's the lighter, there's all of it. It's right there. Okay? And that's what I'm talking about, having it all ready. Offerings. You gotta have them. But you don't want to feed anything until you know that that's what you want. That's what you're calling. Because offerings are the power. Okay? And what I mean is that power is the leverage. It's the freedom. If you give the wrong thing a taste of your goodwill, it's going to use that strength. You gave it to it, and it's going to slip your circle or come at you. So that's why you confirm the identity first, because spirits lie. You even hear this in movies, okay? It's in movies, it's in books, it's everywhere. They will lie, and gods are going to test you. And shades are going to mimic. So, you know, don't be fooled by that pretty voice, you know, or that's a familiar shape. I recognize that. And gather everything you need before you cast that circle, is what I'm trying to say. Because once it's closed, once you close the circle, you don't need to be breaking it again until you're ready to end it and the whole working. Because that circle is the promise, the shield. It's the difference between having a conversation with what you're talking to or this huge catastrophe. I've had a couple of things happen, not when I was by myself, but with others, and that's you got to make sure you're all on the same wavelength. Believe me. If you're going to open the door, then you need to know how to keep the house safe. Just like you're opening the door, the front door to your home, something's behind it. You don't know who it is. And you don't just yank it open. Do you? No. So I heard someone speak recently about their closed door policy. So yes, finally someone remembering the old ways. I love it when someone actually talks about old, or what they would call traditional ways, and so that gets my attention before anything else will. Because your home is your health. It's your den. It's your sanctuary. So nothing should be crossing that threshold without you saying so, right? Spirits don't get free entry just because they're clever or curious. You have to set the rules. You have to enforce it. And that's the first law of living alongside the unseen. Once you decide to do that, these are things to know and to take care of. So, that night hag sitting on your chest. Do not think that was a night hag sitting on my chest, but it's probably along the same lines. Or if you got a dream spirit, every time you go to sleep, it's like right there, you know. Are you ever been in the shower and you feel like somebody's watching you? You gotta lock that out. Because spirits are like stray dogs. If you let them wander in once or twice, they're going to keep coming back for those scraps. You got to show them the door, and you got to make sure that they know that it's barred. So you got to burn your banishing herbs. Now we're talking about being inside your house. You know, you're doing your wards, you're protecting your house. So get your banishing herbs, burn that, you know, you put them on the little shell or a little dish or something like that. Somewhere, even if it's a stick of whatever you're using to walk around your house. I walk counterclockwise around my home. Every room, every corner, every cupboard, every forgotten little space. That dark corner, you know, where all the dust seems to gather and, you know, shadows are there. Because spirits are going to cling to those places that you ignore. So don't ignore anything. Try not to ignore anything. And you don't want to be whispering. People do this thing where they say, you know, say it in your head. No. You got to say it out loud. You got to let your voice carry through all the walls of your home and out. Let the neighbors think you're weird. That way they'll leave you alone. Get out all those unwanted spirits. You know, tell them you are not welcome here. You know, get out. Get out. Get out. You gotta say it like you mean it. Okay? Because spirits, there's like, oh, she's polite. Well, she must not mean it then. You gotta have some authority that they're going to respect. Because your home is your circle. That is your circle. Your voice, that is your ward. And your will to do it is the weapon. So use all of those. Now, holy water. I've said before on how to do it. And I also don't care what you call it. You can call it blessing water. You can call it warding water. You can call it iron water, moon water. That name does not matter. Just whatever you call it. The only thing that matters is that you've charged it with your will and your clarity. Because I've said before, water remembers. Water carries. Think about, picture that running stream. Okay? Picture that. So use the water well. Every entryway in your house is a mouth. Every crack is a whisper. I'm talking about your mirrors, your drains, your vents, windows, doors especially. But we can forget how many ways that the unseen can like slip in anywhere, okay? A little mouse does. A little tiny mouse. Sometimes a big mouse. And any other thing. So think about that. Think about it that way. So you're going to sprinkle that water on each one of those. Okay? And now the water itself is not magic. Your intent writing on it is what you're doing, because you're telling the house to wake up, I need you to guard me. And if you speak to your house, then you know that they listen when spoken to properly. I speak to mine all the time. And then I'm going to mark the doors and windows. You can use an equal armed cross. I'm not talking about the Christian cross. I'm talking about the equal armed cross. If that's your symbol, if you like that. Or maybe you have a rune symbol that you use. Or maybe you have your own sigil. Or do a handprint. I don't care really what shape you choose. Only that it means closed to you. So consecrate each mark. It's locked. That window is locked. That door is locked. That vent is locked. Speak it out loud. Don't think it in your mind. Say it out loud. And now we're going to come to the part that a lot of people just want to rush through or not paying any attention to, and that's the boundaries. You don't want to be panicky about setting these. You don't want to half form any of them, just like trying to spit them out. You need to think. You need to weigh and choose your words like you're actually carving them into rock or wood or something. You're taking the time. Because spirits, even familiars, they're going to take those boundaries literally. So if you leave that loophole, they're going to find it. If you leave a crack, they're going to slip through. So you got to speak your rules, boundaries clearly. You're not entering my dreams. You are not touching my body. You are not feeding on my fear. Not crossing my threshold without an invitation. Like whatever you need to say. But you got to say it like you got a spine, okay? And you're protecting your house, and you know your house. Is there going to be a problem? There could be a problem if you try to rush through it. That's, if you're speaking carelessly. And forgetting boundaries. Boundaries are the bones of your craft. So you want to set them. Set them well. The spirits are going to learn that your house is not a place for mischief. Let me explain to you about how that can be. My ancestral home that none of my family has the rights to. It's not far from me, okay? This home is over 200 years old, made out of pine. So I'm pretty sure it's lighter wood by now. And if it was to catch fire, probably go up minutes. But anyway, there's someone totally not even related, complete stranger living in that house. And I know I've told this story before, but I know it's not in a video on here anymore. But the last ancestor that lived there was a very cranky old fart. Okay, he didn't like nobody. And he didn't like none of his family. And he was going to make dang sure that nobody was going to have that house. So when he knew he was getting close to the end of his lifetime, he sold that house to a complete stranger on purpose. The family cemetery is on that property, the whole 9 yards, okay? And it sits on a ley line. So things are coming in and out. Now, before this person, we have met this person. My daughter knew their daughter from school way back then. And she had no idea that this is where her friend lived. And she had no idea afterwards till she spoke to me that this was what this house was. She had no idea. So the girl's grandmother said a whole bunch of stuff because the girl, you know, they got into a conversation about it. And she goes, yeah, there's this old man here. He lives in the attic, but he's always, you know, I hate taking showers because I feel like he's standing right there. And she's like, and she collects these angel figurines that she kept on the fireplace mantle. And every morning, she already knows when she gets up that she has to go and turn every one of them facing out again. She doesn't know if it's him doing it because the house is on a ley line and things come and go. So we haven't spoken to that person or been back to that property, you know, in a few years. I do know that when I went there, the owner was not home. We were just driving by and we thought we'd stop and see if we could look around and stuff, but they weren't home. Just standing on the porch, I couldn't even stand up straight on the porch. I don't know. I couldn't stand up straight. I had to get off the porch. I thought it was like vertigo. That's what it felt like. And I couldn't stand on the porch. I had to get off and get onto the road, which is not far in front of the house. But yeah, I've never gotten to go in, and I don't even know if the same person lives there or not. But that's kind of like an issue like this. Okay, you don't know what's there or going to be there. So now we're going to talk about a charm. And we all talk about charms, and we all have charms hanging up in our houses. Everybody needs one. But some people will think that the charms are just decoration. Now, I have some charms that are just decorations. But, you know, they feel witchy, so you want them hanging around and stuff. But an actual charm is a lock. And a charm is a sentinel. It's a thing that's going to be standing watch while you're asleep, or you're distracted, or you're too tired to keep your wards tight. And you can use what you have. An old iron key tied to a holy stone. Or you can get you a red bag and stuff it with St. John's wort, rowan, salt, again, whatever you see as a protection. Maybe carve a rune into driftwood. A staff nailed above the door. Like the world, we have so many apotropaic tools, okay? Every culture has them. They all made them. Every ancestor relied on them, whether it was a horseshoe or a railroad nail, you know, those kind of things. The item doesn't really matter. What matters is the consecration you do with it. So you take it to your altar, you cleanse it with your holy water, whatever you want to call that. I do this, and I spoke of this in my consecration and desecration video. I cover the charm with a dark cloth, or you can put it into a black bag or something. And you let it rest there. This is like a womb mimicry. Then you lift the cloth and you birth it for its purpose. It now has a new name and a purpose. And you speak that out loud. Because a charm without a name or a person that you've given, purpose, is just an object. One with a name is an actual guardian. Don't just order something from Etsy or whatever and just stick it up there. You don't know what it's doing. Then you want to anoint it with oil. Doesn't have to be a particular kind of oil, but if you have a particular kind of oil, then use it. You want to seal the work that you've done. And then you want to hang it where it can see the door. It's usually above the door, beside the door. I never hang mine, like when you open the door, the behind part, I don't hang anything there. I hang it where it sees the door open, or it's above the door and it sees the door open. Or you can hide it where you know only the spirits are going to find it. So 5 minutes of true magic can buy you a year of peace. More if you're diligent. Like, don't get lazy about it. I've done that. I will admit it. I've done that. I got lazy. Because wards can grow thin. And charms can get tired and wore out. You got to reset them once or twice a year. You can do it at the turning of the seasons, or when the veil thins, or whenever your house starts feeling restless to you. It's not copacetic. Because protection is a living thing and it needs to be tended. So you keep your lock strong, you're going to sleep easier than someone who's just trusting luck. Always need to start with common sense. Like, there's a phrase, there's a proverb, I think it's called a proverb, but it basically says to never summon what you cannot send home, never summon what you can't quiet, or bind or bar. It's the oldest it's an old proverb. It's the oldest rule, and a lot of people forget it in their excitement. Oh, I'm going to summon this. Because if you don't know how to close that door, don't open it. Is it always going to be bad? No, probably not. But are you assuming it's not always going to be bad? You should always assume it's going to be bad. And let's don't fool ourselves about gods. A lot of people want to do that. Spirits, you can banish. Shades, you can trap them. Demons, you can outmaneuver them if you're clever. But gods, understand, they are old. Okay? They are older than everything. They are vast. They are rooted in the bones of this world. Okay? They're old. So you're going to try and shove a god out by force? They're going to stand there and be very amused with you. Like, it's cute. I know a lot of people don't think of gods doing stuff like that. But if they exist, and if they have the personality that you read about, they're just going to not do that because you're not comfortable with it. Don't think so. But they do have rules. Even gods have rules. And even gods have doors. And every pantheon is going to have that god that stands at the door. That is the gatekeeper. That's the watcher. The one who's going to decide who's going to come and go. Most of them are tricksters. If you're actually reading the stories of them. And then a lot of them were feared by other gods. The ones that even, those other gods that will step lightly around those, or they respect them. Some, just a few, just a handful. You got Papa Legba. You got Hecate, Hermes, Heimdall. There are others too. There are lots of others. It depends on your land, your lineage, your pantheon, whatever you're doing. Now, these are the ones who are going to hold the keys. They're the ones who can escort a naughty god back through the threshold and keep them there. These are the ones who maintain order when the divine gets unruly. So, if you're going to work with spirits, you make friends with that gatekeeper first. You got to offer your respect. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be truthful. These are not hard things to do. And once you have their ear, their respect, then you're going to have that leverage. You have that protection. You have someone who can shut that door when something too big tries to slip through because you weren't prepared enough or didn't think or were careless. You can threaten a spirit with a name, one of these. And that's going to work better than you taking a piece of garlic and waving it around and shouting a bunch of nonsense, okay? Because spirits know who hunt them. They know who enforces the rules. Like you can say, Baba Yaga, for instance. Baba Yaga will eat you. If you read her stories, you know that's a thing. Baba Yaga will eat you. That's going to carry more weight than any kind of incense you're going to be burning. Because names are the teeth, okay, with them. So that's how you could use them. Pride is going to cause the trouble. Your gatekeeper can prevent it. A lot of gatekeepers are underestimated because they're not these, the flashy ones. They may not be the loudest, or they may not be the ones with all the temples and the festivals. Some of them have a few. But they are the ones who hold the keys. They're the ones who decide who's going to pass and who's going to stay put. They're the ones who can escort a troublesome spirit back to its proper realm without breaking a sweat. So if a spirit is refusing to leave, like you've done all the banishing, you've done everything you know, you burned the incense, you waved the garlic, you did all of that, then that gatekeeper can haul it back through that crack that it came out of. Even if you got a benevolent ancestor, or a deity is overstaying its welcome. And maybe you had a ritual and there was one of the attendants that summoned, or if you did, summoned an actual god or something. It's like, no, I don't want to leave. I like it here. Then that gatekeeper can come and unhook them and send them home. They're not going to fuss about it. They're not going to hesitate. They don't make mistakes. We're the ones who fumble our words and call the wrong name and open the wrong door. So the specificity is everything. If you're calling a spirit of the dead, then what are you going to do? You're just going to shout out into the void? No, you're going to call the one who guards the underworld gate. If you're dealing with an unseelie nature spirit, call the ruler of that court, the fairy king or queen. You match the gatekeeper to the realm. Otherwise, you're taking a problem to the wrong door. That doesn't work. That doesn't end well. So you drag the spirit to their door. The gatekeepers aren't going to come and fetch your mess for you. You take the trouble to them. And you pay them for their service, the offerings. You want to pay well. You want to be respectful. They're taking care of your mess. Okay? So it needs to be according to their nature, because they each one have their own taste. We know that. Don't guess. Learn. You want to learn their taboos, their tests. They have preferred offerings. They wouldn't have been written down and existed for centuries, is all I can say. So if you want a relationship with what I call a cosmic bouncer, because they take care of your mess, and throw it out the door. So you need to learn what they like. So you build that bond with that gatekeeper. And if you're a spirit worker, that's a really important thing to do. So if you're going to call a gatekeeper, you want to call them properly. It needs to be out loud, not in your head. You want to have a spine about it, okay? Need some authority in your voice when you call. They're not going to hear you whisper. They want to answer someone who is standing firm. They want to know, do you know who you're calling? Let me know that you know who you're calling, because I'm not playing here. This isn't a parlor trick. So you give them an offering. Something that's going to speak to their nature. Something that shows them respect. They don't want you to flatter them. They want you to acknowledge them by, they want to see you know what you're talking about. Oh, she knows me. They know me. They gave me the proper thing. I like that. I respect that. Because they're busy. These are people who are standing at the doors of the other realms, okay? There's shit coming and going, all right? They got to close this door. They got to open this door. They got all these rules for these spirits and stuff. So if you want their help, you got to understand. You got to show that you understand what you're asking. Again, if you're going to believe in something, then you need to believe in something. That's all I can say. Ask them to open the door between the worlds and to take this spirit or being or whatever it is back where it belongs, because it won't listen to you. And then ask them to lock the door behind it. They're not going to fuss with you. They're not going to negotiate. They're just going to do this and get it done, and they're not going to mess up. So if you called the right one from the right realm and spoke out loud and clearly, then it should happen just fine. Then you leave them another offering. You're going to say thank you out loud. Then you're going to say your farewell. Thank you for helping me. Farewell. Bye-bye. However, because they're not going to linger unless you're going to ask them to. Because they appreciate the boundaries as much as you do. And like I said, there are 2 more parts. This goes a little bit deeper and touches a little bit more that people are like, do I have to do that? Do people do that? This is a little bit more, but this was really long. So if this intrigued you or interests you, or you don't think it's a bunch of bull hockey, because like I say, if you're going to believe in something, you might as well believe in it or not at all, okay? Because it's all part and parcel of the whole thing. It's not just glamour magic, lighting a little candle, rolling it around in the herbs and the oil, and thinking in your head what's going to be, okay? And if it offends you that things get this deep and this dark, don't do spirit work, or, I don't know what to tell you. Whatever. So, let me know if you want the rest of it, because this is a long one, and, yeah. If not, I'll take the silence and the crickets for it. No, I'm good. Okay? So, until then or not until then, I'll see you next time.